All right, now we'll go ahead and create and configure shared storage. We have completed step 1, 2, and 3. We'll go ahead and perform step number 4. So before you create and configure shared storage, you must stop the nodes if they are running. So I have the second node running. Now let me shut down it. All right, now you can see the second node also powered off. So once both the nodes are shut down, we will select rack 1, which is the first node, and I add shared storage devices to this node. What we'll do, we will add 50 GB shared storage. And this 50 GB, we will not add it as a single device. We will add 10 devices, each with the 5 GB size. So click on the first node, select the first node, rack 1, click on the storage. You can see this node already has 100 GB virtual disk added. This is the internal storage on which we have installed the Linux. Now click on storage and choose this controller to which the existing disk has been attached, and click on the plus symbol, add a hard disk, create a new disk type VDI. Shared storage must be fixed size. Choose fixed size, and disk name, you can take the default name new virtual disk 1, and shared disk size is, say, each one will give 5 GB size. Create. So now you can see new virtual disk 1 has been added, attached. Okay. So click on this again. So repeat this and create 9 more disks, fixed size, and this time the disk name is new virtual disk 2, and the size is 5 GB. Create. Repeat. Create new disk, fixed size, and a new virtual disk 3, 5 GB. Create. Click. Create new disk, fixed size, virtual disk 4, size 5 GB. Fixed size, virtual disk 5, 5 GB. Create. Create new disk, fixed size, 5 GB. Create. Create new disk, disk 7, 5 GB. Fixed size, disk number 8, 5 GB. Create. Fixed size, disk number 9, 5 GB. Create. fixed size, disk number 10, 5 GB, create. That's it. Now we created a 10 disks, each one 5 GB. So these 10 disks will use for shared storage. Each disk is like a physical disk, and we will create a ASM disk. We'll mark them as ASM disks. Say OK. Now, after creating them, what you need to do, you can see all these disks are attached to node 1. We need to attach them to node 2 also. And before that, we have to change the property to from normal to shared. How do you do this is, go to File, Virtual Media Manager, and choose these disks that you newly created, starting from disk 1, okay, to disk 10. For each disk, select a disk, type from normal, you change to shareable, apply. So for every disk that we created, make this change. Done. We are done with all the disks. Now close this. Now what you need to do now is, we have to attach them to second node also. So click second node and click on the storage. Choose the controller to which the internal disk has been attached, and click on add hard disk. This time choose existing disk, because these are shared disks. You don't create them again. You created earlier and you are choosing them now and attaching this to the second node. So again attach these disk 1 to 10 to the second node. Choose existing disk. So for every disk you have to attach them one by one. Alright, now we have attached all the disks. Disk 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Save OK. That's it. Now we attached these disks to both nodes. So now you can start both nodes. and mark them as ASM disks for ASM usage. All right, now log into node 1 as root user. Open a terminal window and let us verify if these shared disks are visible from node 1. You can use lsblk command to see all these device names. So you can see this is the internal disk 100 GB on which Linux has been installed. So it has three partitions. During installation, we assigned 100 GB and created three partitions: root, swap, and U01. Then these remaining device names correspond to the shared disks that we just created. Each one size you can see 5 GB, 5 GB. You will also observe one default device name for RAM device, SR0. So you should not use this to create your ASM disk. Don't touch this. This is internal device representing the RAM device. So otherwise you can see the device names starting from SDB, then SDC, SDD, SDE, FG, H, I, J, K. So these are all the device names corresponding to our shared disks. Now another test is you should be able to see them from node 2 also, because we attached them to both the nodes. So just to ensure you can see them from node 2 also, log into node 2 as root user. Open a terminal window and say lsblk. Now you could see those on node 2 also. So these are external devices, shared devices. So you could able to see them from both the nodes. All right, now with this, what we need to do next, we have to mark them as ASM disks for ASM use, because shared storage is uh, managed by ASM. In our case, we are using ASM to manage the shared storage. So let us go to node 2 and mark them as ASM disks. Create the ASM disks on these devices. You need to do this from only one node, preferably on the first node. So how do you mark or create ASM disks on these devices? First, what we need to, before creating ASM disks, we need to create partition on each of these devices, because ASM can recognize physical disks or disk partitions. So on each of these devices, we have to create a partition. How do you create a partition? We use fdisk. Fdisk, the device name on which you want to create a partition. So the first one is SDB. SDA, don't touch, it has already partitions. So let us start from SDB. And create a new partition. Type N to create new partition. Then partition type default is P, press enter. Partition number default is 1, press enter. We will create only one partition. Each disk, one partition. And the first sector, let us choose the default, press enter. The last sector, again choose the default, press enter. And save these changes, W. That's it. Now we created a one partition, a single partition on the disk. Just to verify, LSBLK will now show you an SDB one partition. The partition name is SDB1 and the partition size is 5 GB. So on each disk, we will create one partition. We will repeat this now on the remaining devices. Next one is SDC. N to create new partition. Enter, 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 enter. W to save the partition. Similarly, SDD. N to create new partition. Default enter, 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 enter. Now command W to save. Similarly, next device is SDE. N to create new partition. Enter, 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 W. SDF. N to create new partition. Enter, 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 enter. Be careful. On the command don't enter, you type W. Otherwise your partition will not be saved. G, SDG. N, enter, 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 W. H, SDH. N, W. SDI, the next device. N, default, default, default. W. SDJ, the next device. N, W. The last one is K. N, enter, 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 W. So we have covered all the devices. Let us check. Any device is left behind. So on every device, now you can see one partition. Except SR0, don't touch SR0. Whatever devices we created, we have partitions. Done. Now once the partitions are created, we will mark each partition as an ASM disk. In other words, we will create ASM disk on each of these partitions. How to create ASM disks? Create ASM, directly ASM, create a disk. You can give name ASM disk 1 and what is the device? Starting with SDB 1. You need to give the partition device name, SDB 1. Now repeat this. Next is ASM disk 2, SDC1, SDD1, ASM disk 3, SDE1, ASM disk 4, SDF1, ASM disk 5, SDG1, ASM disk 6, SDH1, ASM disk 7, SDI1, ASM disk 8, SDJ1, ASM disk 9, SDK1, ASM disk 10. Done. So on all these 10 disk partitions, we created ASM disks. We marked them as ASM disks. So let us list all our ASM disks now. Oracle ASM list disks. You should be able to see ASM disk 1 till 10. Now these should be visible on second node also because we have created ASM disks on the shared storage devices. So just as a verification, let us go to second node and Oracle ASM scan disks. First scan these disks, then list the disks. Oracle ASM list disks. All right, now that's the confirmation. You should be able to see ASM disks from both the nodes. So with this, we completed the fourth step, which is create and configure shared storage.